After breaking out last season, after Damian Lillard went down with his core surgery, expectations were high for Anfernee Simons heading into this past season. He was expected to take over CJ McCollum's production and become a 20-point per game scorer as the starting shooting guard next to Damian Lillard. Normally, I would show my thoughts before the season on each player as I've done in this player review series. However, everything with Anfernee Simons was straightforward. He could shoot the ball, he could handle the ball a bit, he started to develop an off the dribble game and started to get to the rim during his breakout last season, and that was the expectations going into this past year. Before we take a look at how this past year went, let me thank BetOnline for sponsoring this player review. You can head over to BetOnline with the promo code BELIEVE for a 50% reward bonus. That, of course, is BLEAV, and you can get in on this second round NBA playoff action. You can also get in on any sport you want that's going on right now. It makes sporting events a ton of fun as they got parlays, live betting, and all sorts of action for you to get in on. Remember, that's BLEAV for 50%. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now let's take a look at how Anfernee Simons did during his first year as a full-time starter for the Portland Trail Blazers. As we take a look at the stats, Anfernee Simons' stat line was a lot like CJ McCollum's old stat lines, as he averaged 21 points per game and a shade over 4 assists. Per 36 numbers are almost identical, as Simons played in 35 minutes a game in 62 games. It probably would have been higher if the Blazers didn't tank once again. As far as the goals go for Anfernee Simons, I gave him a goal of 22 points per 36 minutes. This was kind of on par with his production last season and on par with what CJ McCollum did as a Blazer, and Anfernee Simons barely missed out on that goal at 21.7 points per 36 minutes. I mean, he basically met that goal. That difference is completely meaningless. I'm not going to shade that red at all. My next goal for Simons was 5 assists per 36 minutes, and I thought Anfernee Simons, being that point guard, backup point with the bench unit, would allow him to rack up a lot of assists, and he would kind of be the playmaker with that unit. However, that didn't really come to fruition, as he only had 4.2 assists per 36. Still an okay number, but he didn't meet that goal. A big part of that was due to the bench lineup just being complete trash offensively, if I'm honest, and a lot of times Anfernee Simons didn't have good options to pass the ball to, and a lot of times Simons had to create in a stagnant offense on his own just so that that second unit could get a good shot off. So he didn't meet that goal, but I think it was as much a product of his situation and especially that bench unit more than anything else. I also had a goal of 4 rebounds per 36 minutes. He only had 2.7, so he was a bit short there. And now let's take a look at his efficiency. Simons had been an efficient shooter the past couple of seasons with really good 3-point percentages, but not that great of a 2-point percentage. So going into the season, I gave Anfernee Simons the goal of shooting 50% on 2s, and he surpassed that, shooting 52.8. I also gave Simons the goal of shooting 41% from 3, which feels a bit ambitious, but he had shot around that number the past couple of seasons, and he failed to meet that, shooting only 37.7%. However, he was still efficient from the free throw line, shooting almost 90% from there. And as far as overall efficiency, he was still pretty efficient with a true shooting percentage of 58.1%. That did fall short of his goal of a 60% true shooting percentage, but still, it's not really a negative. I just had optimistic goals for Simons going into the season. Let's take a look at Ant's positives. The first positive I have for Ant is his floater, and you could also probably throw his hook shot in here, as Basketball Reference had Anfernee Simons shooting 72% on hook shots. He was 18 for 25 on the year, but his floater was also pretty automatic all year long. Anfernee Simons coming into the league was mostly just a 3-point shooter with some flashes of creation, and his development of his floater has given him another option when ran off the 3-point line, and he's made teams pay. From 10 to 16 feet, Simons shot 54% this year, which is a really good percentage for that range. And a lot of those were floaters or that hook shot that I just talked about. He's especially lethal with it off the pick and roll, and it's helped make him a dynamic scorer. Without it, he doesn't average 20 a game. The second positive is his three-point volume. Now, as I said, Anfernee Simons didn't shoot as well as he had in previous years if you just look at the percentages, but Simons shot a ton of threes. His three-point volume was insane. He shot 9 three-point attempts per game, which was near the top of the league. And also, if you look at some advanced stuff, his three-point shot quality was very, very poor. He took a lot of very tough threes. So with that context in mind, that 37.7% from three is even more impressive. He got higher quality shots in previous years, so it shouldn't be looked at as his three-point shooting falling off or regressing. It should be looked at as a product of the situation. That's why you have to have context when you look at percentages. Anfernee Simons' three-point shooting was still efficient if you look at the percentage, but also when you take all the context into account and the volume at which Anfernee Simons shot threes, it's extremely impressive. The third positive was his decision making. Anfernee Simons didn't turn over the ball much this year, only averaging 2.1 turnovers in his 35 minutes a game. He had a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, and that was very impressive for him. In 29 minutes a game last year, Anfernee Simons averaged 2 turnovers, so his minutes got bumped up and his turnovers didn't increase. I thought he did a solid job of just making the right decision. He did have moments of some questionable shot selection, but a lot of times I feel like that was due to necessity given the guys that he was playing next to. Overall, I thought Simons was a very solid decision maker this season. The fourth positive is his free throw shooting at almost 90%. Anfernee Simons has turned himself into one of the most efficient free throw shooters in the entire NBA. I wish he would get there a little bit more often though, as he only shot 2.9 free throw attempts in his 35 minutes a game, so that is something for him to work on next year. His free throw rate did increase compared to last year, so that was definitely a positive, and hopefully that will continue as when he gets to the free throw line, he is very, very efficient. And the fifth and final positive was some of the defensive flashes that Simons showed. I do think that he improved defensively last season. I just don't think he's a good defender yet. Now, if a guy sucks defensively and then he's only kind of bad, people just focus on the fact that that defensive player is still kind of bad. But it's improvement. I thought Anfernee Simons went from being a very, very bad defender to a guy that's only kind of bad. And while that might not be good enough defensively, it's still trending in the right direction. I think Simons was actually one of the best Blazers in terms of getting through on-ball screens. I thought he fought through screens well. I just think he has a couple of areas he needs to fix defensively to become less of a negative, and we're going to talk about those as we head into the negatives, as the first negative is his defensive footwork. His footwork getting through screens is good, but in other scenarios, I think his footwork is subpar, mostly when guys just attack him straight on. I think Anfernee Simons opens up too much. I think he drops the foot that the offensive player attacks back too much and just kind of opens the door. I think Anfernee Simons needs to do a better job of sliding and walling off offensive players and absorbing contact with his chest. Now, he hasn't gotten the friendliest whistle in his NBA career when he's done that, so that could be a reason why he drops that high foot, but that would help him become a guy that is at least containing some dribble penetration, which was a big Achilles heel of the Blazers this season. I also think off the ball, he gets turned the wrong way a little bit too much. And then also defending in isolation, I think he has the ability to move his feet a little bit faster. He just reacts a little bit slowly. I think trying to speed up his feet on the defensive end, gain a little bit more lateral quickness, and then becoming a guy that can wall offensive players off a little bit better would do wonders for him defensively. And I think he has that potential, as he's only 23 years old. He still has time to develop into a solid NBA defender, and I think he can. He's going to be undersized at the shooting guard position, but that doesn't mean he has to be a bad defensive player. And he has some good traits such as getting through screens. I just think there's some technique things for him to work on. The second negative was his offensive inconsistency. Simons was just a little bit more inconsistent this season than I would have liked, than I expected, to be honest with you. There was games where he'd look great. Of course, he had that huge third quarter earlier in the season against the Denver Nuggets that helped the Blazers get off to their 4-0 start, but he had other games times where he kind of disappeared. Without Dame, he had a little bit more of an impact. He, of course, had that 40-plus point performance in Utah, but next to Dame on the court, there was some times where Simons would disappear, and that was to be expected. He needed to learn how to play next to a lead guard in the starting lineup and still get his, but also pick his spots wisely because of the talent he had next to him, and I still think he needs a little bit more time to truly find that balance and find consistency within that second guard role. The third negative was getting to the rim. Simons has improved in terms of his slashing ability and finishing around the rim. However, he still doesn't get there enough in my opinion. Only 16.6% of his shots came from 0 to 3 feet. He's much more of a mid-range guy and a three-point guy. Now, as I said in the positives, he doesn't have to get to the rim to score efficiently. His shot making from 10 to 16 feet was very, very quality this year, with that hook shot, such as the hook he hit over Mikal Bridges to help the Blazers win in crunch time against the Phoenix Suns at the start of the year, and then that floater is lethal. I still wish Anfernee Simons would get to the rim a little bit more, as you're always going to shoot a higher percentage at the rim than you probably are from 10 to 16 feet, and also it would help Anfernee Simons get to the free throw line a little bit more as well if he could get all the way downhill, so that is something for him to work on. The fourth negative is his rebounding. 2.7 rebounds per 36 minutes is not good enough. That is definitely an area where he can improve, especially if he's back next season starting next to Jeremy Grant. The guards have to help out with the rebounding because Jeremy Grant just doesn't get it done on the glass as a starting power forward. A lot of times it just became Jusuf Nurkic or whoever the starting center was trying to fend off multiple guys on the defensive glass, and that's a lot to ask of your starting big man. So if Anfernee Simons starts next year in a Blazer uniform, I want him to help out more on the glass. As far as what the future holds for Simons, he is under contract as he did sign an extension last offseason. He still has 3 years left on it, and right now he's making $22.3 million. Once free agency starts, that number gets bumped up to $24.1 million. That is relevant in terms of outgoing salary and trades, as there is a solid chance that Anfernee Simons gets traded this offseason. The Blazers are looking to make a splash. We'll have a lot more videos talking about that. I'll have one tomorrow talking about the top 5 trade targets for the Portland Trail Blazers for Trade Talk Tuesday, and Anfernee Simons will be involved in a lot of those packages, not only because he's a guy that averaged over 20 a game, is productive as an NBA player at only 23 years of age, so he can help a team win now, and he can be part of a future timeline, but also that $22 to $24 million of salary is going to be needed in a lot of trade packages just to match what the Blazers could potentially bring in. If the Blazers are trading for a $40 million player, it's really hard to get to the $32 million of required outgoing salary without including Anfernee Simons. The Blazers don't have many mid-tier salary trade chips in the $6 to $15 million range in order to piece together a package for high-quality players without Anfernee Simons, so there is a good chance he's in a different uniform next year. We'll have to wait and see. As far as the grade for Anfernee Simons, I give him a C+. He was a little bit below expectations in my opinion, but he pretty much met them, so I feel like C+ is a good grade for that. It's not negative, it's not positive. He just basically was what I thought he would be this year. He didn't really wow me, he didn't really disappoint me. He was what I expected after his breakout season last year. Now, if you told me 2 years ago or 3 years ago that Anfernee Simons would be at this point, I would have taken it and I would have been happy about it. So C+ might sound negative to some of you, but it's really not a negative grade. It's just kind of right down the middle. Anyway, let me know what you would grade Simons. Let me know what you thought of his year. Let me know if you want him back in a Blazer uniform next year. Let me know what you think his ceiling is and what he could eventually become in the NBA. I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts. Once again, thank you to BetOnline for sponsoring this player review, and I'm out of here. I'll catch you in the final one, which is Damian Lillard's dropping tomorrow morning. If you want to watch any of the previous ones, click the playlist link in the description box below. And with that said, until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.